Hi everyone, this is Caleb for Bob's EMEC 403 Choose Your Own Adventure assignment. I did this project with Addie Granger, and we decided to do it on the SOLIDWORKS HVAC flow simulation add-on. Um, we started off by making a airplane fuselage with some seats and passengers, and then we also made some vents above each chair and vents on each side of the bottom part of the fuselage to help regulate the pressure. And yeah, so to start off with, we went to Wizard and we named our project and then uh, kept the unit system and SI and then our parameters the same. We didn't mess with those. Made sure it was fluid flow, and then we made sure to change this to internal because usually they should be airtight. So it was an internal simulation. And then we set our gas to air and made it laminar and turbulent. And then we kept our walls at adiabatic to kind of keep it simple and didn't mess with any of the thermodynamic parameters, except we kept the room temperature, which is about 293 degrees Kelvin. I canceled it there so that I wouldn't have to make another flow simulation and have it load. Anyway, so to start off with, we made some boundary conditions because the simulation won't run without boundary conditions. We set the environmental pressure to atmospheric pressure and set it to these vents down here to help regulate that pressure, and then set an inlet volume flow of 0.001 meters cubed per second, which doesn't seem like a lot, but as you'll see when I show the flow trajectories, it is a lot of flow, an unrealistic amount really for these air vents. Uh, we couldn't, for this simulation, we couldn't set it to a temperature for these bodies, so we set it as a heat transfer rate of 100 watts, which from our research was about the average rate for humans. This is a really important part of each of these simulations because they're the main heat sources in this cabin, and so without them, it wouldn't really be a realistic simulation. Now you can run these simulations without goals, but it'll take about 400 to 500 iterations. So we set goals to make sure that we had a converging point for our simulations. And as you can see here, we set it to minimum and maximum temperatures of the fluids and the total temperature in the cabin, and then also the surface temperature of these passengers. We set to about room temperature, and then the maximum would be like about human body temperature. Although if the cabin got up to 98 degrees, that'd be pretty uncomfortable. And then we ran it. And after we ran it, we were able to make some plots, a cut plot, surface plot, and some flow trajectories. As you can see here, there's no variation whatsoever anywhere in the cabin, except for a tiny bit around the heads of, actually no, yeah, there's no variation whatsoever. So we figured this is pretty unrealistic. As you can see, the temperature of the passengers is really cold. If this is their body temperature, they'd be hypothermic, which we don't want that. Then as you can see from this flow, it's really strong, unrealistic, it's flowing everywhere, and it's not efficient, and it's actually just keeping the cabin really cold and unrealistic. So we decided to do a second flow simulation where we changed it so the initial condition of these passengers was about body temperature, and we changed it from the volume flow to mass flow to 0.02 kilograms per second. And as you can see here, there's a little bit more variation in the cabin temperature as you move it forward and backwards, but it's really warm, really, really warm. That's about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Not really comfortable for our passengers, not what we wanted. And the flow trajectories, as you can see, if I zoom in here, are really, really weak. That's why it's really warm in there. These passengers are heating this cabin up, and there's not really much AC keeping them cool, not much flow. And so we decided to run a third simulation with, instead of trying to hone in the flow of the vents, we just made them fans. And we made them external inlet fans with one of the SolidWorks default ones. And we kept that initial condition of their skin temperature and then had these goals of their temperature in the cabin and the uh, actual passengers. As you can see, this is a lot more realistic. It's still a bit warm in the cabin, but we are a budget airline, so these passengers are getting what they paid for. As you can see, a lot of the heat just stays up top, which is good. It stays away from passengers. Up front, it's really warm. Um, and then as you move back, it's fairly consistent. Does warm back up a little bit against that back wall. The passenger temperature looks mostly all right. They're pretty cool. Assuming this isn't their actual body temperature, we're keeping them at an okay temperature. And then if you look at these flows, you can see the reaction to temperature is a lot more realistic. The flow is bouncing around again, not ideal. We would want to get that to be more uniform and flow backwards to help cool. You can see it kind of warms up as it flows around as it's getting away from that fan, which is pretty realistic and what you would expect. If we were to try to improve this, we'd probably add some exhaust fans or fans, sorry, outlets at the front or the back to try to get that air to flow more uniformly towards the back or towards the front, or in a way that is uh, more deliberate to help cool the passengers. The main thing we learned about the HVAC simulation and just HVAC in general is one, we are not qualified to create an HVAC system for an airplane. Our passengers would not be comfortable, and no one would fly on an airline. We learned that the boundary conditions are really important to get right and to get realistic because, as you can see from our past simulations, if you don't get it right, you're going to get really unrealistic and bad results, especially here with this. This flow is completely unreasonable, and that's why it's just so cold. And it being in terms of a temperature, a good temperature, it's unrealistic for it to be that uniform. So really dialing in and honing in those boundary conditions and those flow conditions uh, is a future goal of ours if we were to try to use this again. But that's all I have. This was the SolidWorks flow simulation, and have a good day.